let's take a look at Mike Zimmer's history over the year. Who is Mike Zimmer? Cowboys fans should be very familiar with Mike. If you are an old school fan, maybe if you're a younger fan, you might not be. And we have a lot of younger fans here. Mike started off his NFL career in Dallas in 94 as an assistant, but he also was on that 95 Super Bowl staff as a defensive backs coach. That eventually turned into a defensive coordinator gig for the Cowboys under Dave Campo and Bill Parcells. He did that for 7 seasons between 2000 and 2006. And during that time, we've always had good defenses for the most part, respectable ones at the very least, under Zim. But during that time when they hired Bill, Bill came in and said, hey, we're switching to 3-4. I'm a 3-4 coach, right? But he kept Zim. He respected Zim enough to keep him. And Zim switched from a 4-3 to a 3-4. Mind you, at that point in time in the NFL, that was a big deal. Nowadays, it's like nobody's really running a 3-4-4 like a traditional. We talked about this last week. Base is mostly nickel. Back then, that wasn't the case. So he kept Zim around, and he switched from 4-3 to 3-4, and I thought he did so very respectable. He had the Cowboys at one point, the best defense in the league the very first year doing it, but respectable defenses throughout. That eventually, when Bill Parcells left, they hired Wade Phillips. Wade Phillips wanted to do his own thing. He went on for 1 season to Atlanta, and I don't know if you guys remember that infamous season. Anybody remember Bobby Petrino? It's like a blip in NFL history, but I almost remember it vividly. The note being left on the door, hey, y'all, I quit. I can't do this. Bobby Petrino goes back to college, and the rest is history. And he just kind of years ago had another scandal in college, but Bobby Petrino, man. Nonetheless, Zim took over that gig for 1 season. And then after that, the gig that most of you guys are familiar with as a defensive coordinator, if you don't remember him in Dallas, is the Cincinnati Bengals defensive coordinator gig, where he worked under Marvin Lewis for 6 seasons. And most of those seasons, the Bengals defenses were really damn good. Really good. In fact, there's a video going around from the time he was in Cincy that kind of pretty much describes who Zimmer is. Likely more so as a DC. He was a hard ass as a head coach as well, but as a head coach, you got to wear so many hats. As a DC, you can just focus directly on your unit. This is the clip that's going around on Twitter about when Mike Zimmer was with the Bengals.
Damn it, that's horse shit. If we get a press, G, you get your fucking ass outside and get it contained, okay? I told you this quarterback runs. Keep him in the pocket. You got me? You better quit bullshitting around. I'm not having this bullshit. Better get your minds right, or I'll get them right for you.
Hey, Zim ain't with the BS. This clip went viral on Twitter, and it basically explains who he is as a DC. Now, these kids now, dude, a little different. I don't know how different Zim would be, but I do know he was, in a way, like that with the Vikings. So his successful stint as defensive coordinator parlayed that into a head coaching gig with the Vikings, where he was with Minnesota for 8 seasons. And over half of those years, their defense was either top flight or respectable. Top flight or respectable. By the way, ended up taking Case Keenum to an NFC Championship game where they got blown out by Philly, and Philly went on to win the Super Bowl. But it did not end greatly in Minnesota. Their general manager, Spielman, and Zimmer both were let go in 2021. So he's only 1 year removed from the game, right? Well, 2 technically. He didn't coach 2 years, 2022, 2023 season. So he's not that far removed from the game. But certain parts of it in regards to the psychology of the game may have passed him by as a head coach, because it ended sour there in Minnesota, right? Players, not a player coach. And I'm fine with that, by the way. I talked about Joe Witt. I said, hey, look, Joe Witt's a no-nonsense guy. I think that'd be welcome in this day and age. A lot of players probably won't like this dude. I don't care. You know what I'm saying? Because Zim knows defense. From 2010 to 2021, before he left, 7 out of those 12 seasons, his defense is ranked in the top 10 in DVOA. So this isn't a Ron Rivera situation. With all due respect to Ron Rivera hasn't overseen or called a defense for a season since he was with the Chargers. That's like in 2010. Zim's been running defenses his whole entire life in the NFL, essentially.